What's up? You're watching Poot's Garage. This week, let's work on the Cherokee. Cheezburger needs some work. We got some really nasty fall weather blowing through today. It is really windy. It rained all day yesterday. Looks like there's more rain coming today. And just heard a big old thunder roll through, so might get a little nasty here. So I pulled the truck out of the garage. Sorry for any wind noise. Truck's gonna sit out there. It might get rained on, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna pull the Jeep into the garage here since we got so much room for activities. And let's get some stuff done. So much more room. Look at all that. Look at that. This Jeep sits on the cracks basically just past them. The truck sits right there's its tire mark and about the same in the back. Way back there. Jeez, there's a whole lot more room to work in here. This is kind of nice. Maybe I just need to leave the truck outside forever. Nah, couldn't do that. So in the previous video for this Jeep here, hold on, cat's trying to get out. Well, excuse me. So on the previous video, we took this thing out and we just tried to test it out and see what it can do and any weaknesses that we can find, and we obviously found a bunch. The number one weakness right now is that rear locker, which is supposed to have one back there, is not working. It's supposed to just be a lunchbox locker. I think I saw a picture of an Aussie locker being installed, so I'm gonna pull the rear diff cover on this thing, which is cool because the rear diff leaks anyways, so it looks like that cover needs a little help. Anyways, so we're gonna pull that rear diff cover off and see what's going on in there. Honestly, I kind of hope that it's just an open diff and I can just weld it because I don't want to have to order parts to get the locker to work again, or I don't know, we'll see, but I mean, it's kind of nice if it does have an operating locker back there. So we're going to start with that. Then if we have enough time, I got some parts to install also. I ordered up some upgrade pieces that we need to do. Let me show you what we got. So first up, I got a pile of brackets here. This is a lower, or actually I should say front control arm drop brackets. This drops the front upper and lower control arms down quite a bit. I'm not a fan of these things just because they look goofy and you lose ground clearance and stuff like that, but this Jeep really needs it. Being short arm and so much lift, those arms are at such a gnarly angle that the axle at times actually wants to pull back behind the vehicle instead of go up. So we need to flatten out them control arms a little bit, and these brackets will do that. Underneath that is a slip yoke eliminator, which I'm not going to install quite yet. I don't have a, well, I could. I just don't have a drive shaft for it, but I need to install it to find out what size drive shaft I'm going to need. So maybe we'll get to that. And then next, we have upgraded front steering. The stock tie rods on these things are super thin and super flimsy. So we got this, Max Speeding Rods branded steering setup. These are pretty affordable and surprisingly the quality is super good. So we're going to try to get that in here if we've got enough time, and yeah, kind of depends on what's going on with the rear diff on this thing, so let's get started. Got this thing inside just in time. The rain is coming down. It is windy. But anyways, you can see this is what we're working on. This is a Chrysler 8 1/4 rear differential. This is kind of one of the best rear ends that ever came in a Cherokee, besides maybe the Rare 44, but these are pretty good. You can see it leaks a lot. It has an aftermarket rear diff cover. I have no idea what gears are in it. And I've also been told this thing was upgraded to the later 29 spline shafts. I think this whole rear end came out of a later Cherokee. So that's really good. So we're going to verify all of that stuff. And then we'll see what we can do about fixing something on this. Make it a little funner off-road. So this is a really nice rear diff cover, G2 axle and gear. I don't know who actually makes that, but it is made in the USA. They put it all over it, so that's pretty cool. Got a really nice diff cover. We also have a broken bolt up here that's missing, so hopefully we can try and figure something out for that. But yeah, it's kind of nice. Let's get this thing apart and see. I'm gonna try and, if the gear oil looks good in there, I'm gonna try and salvage the gear oil. But so I'm just gonna clean this little spot really good first. That way we can try to save it. That rear drain plug is all tore up from rocks or something, so it's possible that's where the leak's coming from. I guess I should have cleaned it up and let it leak a little beforehand, but that's all right. We'll obviously we gotta tear it all apart anyways. Hopefully that plug comes out good. Oh, didn't hit record, but I was trying to get this off. This is just not happening. Immediately the tool goes sideways and starts stripping out. This is an aluminum plug, and so it's done. This here is steel, that comes off, that's good. So we're gonna have to just take the cover bolts off and just pop the whole cover. I don't like the look of some of these bolts or in different angles. Hopefully somebody didn't cross thread everything on this. Ugh. Oh, that one was loose. That's great. This is off to a great start. Barely tight. There we go. Ugh, splat. I am not trying to save this oil anymore, and it looks really nasty. All right. That is some nasty looking oil. Oh yeah, that oil is toast. Ugh, nasty. Not a whole lot in there. Maybe had a little bit in there. That's not a good sign though, that's for sure. Now, to see what's actually in here. What do we got? Oh, that's interesting. As you can see, our level was decent, but that is some nasty, nasty oil. Are you guys ready for this? Ta-da! That is not a locker. That would be an open differential. So somebody lied somewhere along the ways. Who knows? But good thing about that is we get to just weld it. So this thing will be back together and running in no time. I don't have to wait a week on parts or nothing, so cool. Budget Jeep. Remember, this is a budget. That fluid is nasty in there though, so I gotta count these teeth. Probably stock, because that pinion looks huge back there. And then ring gear looks pretty thin, so I'm guessing it's gonna be some stock gears. There's actually a lot of rust on those gears too, so this thing probably had some water in it at one point and never got really cleaned out, which is probably why it's so nasty and milky. Just not what you want to see, but this being a beater and a budget, it doesn't bother me that much as long as the bearings are holding together. We'll be all right. We'll see if I can figure out the spline count on those axles. That'd be kind of neat to know. Worst part about all this is now I gotta clean this. This thing is so nasty, so I gotta get all that nasty oil out. I'm gonna use a ton of brake clean. This hole here seems to be clear. It's just packed full of dirt, so hopefully there's threads and stuff in there and I can just buy a new bolt and put that in. And then just clean everything up, get this thing welded, and then back together. I guess we can do a little rotation here, see how things are working. Yeah, that's an open diff right there. That's all that happens when you're spinning the tires. All right, now we're in neutral. Give her a little spin here. I want to find the numbers. There we go. Oh, that sucks. So based on what I'm seeing here, I believe I see a 355, which is very crappy gears. We got 355 gears in this thing, which I kind of expected. Kind of feels like a dog, so that was what I figured was in here. I was kind of hoping to get lucky with some 373s at least, but nope. We got some highway gears. All right, so I did count the gears just to be safe, but yeah, the pinion has 11 teeth. This guy here the ring gear has 39, I think I counted, and 39 divided by 11 is 355. So yep, we got crappy gears. Away she goes. So I'm not gonna take this diff out to weld it, but I do wanna know how many splines these axle shafts are, so I'm gonna pull the center pin out and loosen up a shaft and see if I can count the splines somewhere without pulling the shaft all the way out. Rusty. I've been spraying this thing down. Ton of brake cleaner. Trying to get everything cleaned out. Ah, spray clean's gonna get me high. Woo-hoo. He's strong. Pull that center pin bolt out. Let's rotate this down just a hair. Center pin comes out. Clean that up. Get the axle shaft inward. Pull one of the C-clips out. I'm wondering if I can count the splines from here, or if I need to actually pull it out and count out there. Try not to pull it all the way out, but... Well, at least we got some good news. You can probably barely see the axle splines right along in there. I marked one with a piece of paint, then I slowly spun the wheel and counted them, and we actually do have 29 splines, so that's one plus. We do have the better axle in the back of this, so that makes me feel good. So I can throw those back in, and then obviously get back to welding. Alright, we are all cleaned up, ready to go. We're going to weld this thing together. I had to actually watch some videos. I've never done this before, so I had to kind of look how to actually do it, you know? And so, watched a few videos from a couple different four-wheelers, specifically XJ guys that know these things, and kind of some tips on that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to weld the corners, the four corners of the gears together on both sides, because we'll rotate this whole thing, get the back side. So we'll do the four corners, and then we're going to weld the side gears to the differential itself here, the case, on both inner and outer, and then we'll probably run some on the spider gears on the case also. So this thing's pretty cold because I've been blasting it with brake clean and whatnot, and since this is cast, it's cast steel, not cast iron, cast steel, it'll weld okay, but you do risk the chance of having cracks and stuff. So I'm going to preheat it a little bit, but I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to make this super proper. We're just going to be using our propane torch to get some heat into the whole thing. Once we get it nice and warmed up, then we'll run our welds. We'll try to do some tacks on both sides and kind of work our way back and forth, and that'll be it. I'm not trying to get super crazy on this. I'm not going to weld the plates across everything like a lot of the guys do. We're just going to kind of do the bare minimum, if anything. But yeah, we're gonna try it out. It's the first time doing it, so it's kind of exciting. This is harder than it looks. Don't look too close, but so we've kind of got everything solidly welded at this point. I'm gonna go over everything again, just try and make a final pass to really tie everything together. Yeah, everything's kind of just gooped in there right now. It's rough. It's really hard to weld in there, not gonna lie. It can definitely tell you might need a few times to get some practice on that, but it's solid. But I'm just gonna kind of go over everything once more to kind of give it a nice cover pass, and then yeah, I think we're done with this then. And then we gotta really try and clean out as much of that slag and different things that are in there right now. And you know, obviously we don't want that picked up between gears and bearings and stuff, so hopefully this thing survives a little bit. not pretty, but she is solid. That thing is officially welded. The thing is probably smoking hot right now, so we're gonna let it cool off just kind of naturally, and then we'll worry about cleaning it up. Yeah, she's putting off some heat. It's not pretty. That is extremely hard to weld in there. There's all sorts of crevices, and nothing's flat, nothing's even, nothing's whatever. You're just going all these different little weird shapes you're trying to get into. So yeah, it's not easy. It's very ugly. I've seen a lot better jobs done though. So my job was not very good, that's for sure. But it's definitely solid, so it ain't going nowhere. You see the heat's just melting the oil out of the side bearings there, which is fine. Get all that nasty stuff out of there at least. It's still storming out here, pretty windy, kind of sprinkling all day. Poor truck's just out there on the street. If you want to see how hot these things get, it's been about, I don't know, 20 minutes since I stopped welding. So I'm going to point this thing at the ground. We got about 70 degrees. 70, 75, 60, there we go. That's probably a warm spot where I was sitting. So we got about 60 degrees on the ground, and then if we go up to the actual differential here, so like the housing itself is 100 degrees right there. We start getting to the bearing, 130 degrees. Right on the carrier, 160. We go back on a hot weld there, 160. I know I saw 180 in here somewhere. 170 right on the side there. So yeah, these things get hot. So ring gear itself, 170, geez. Side bearing up there, 115. So everything's nice and hot, which is actually kind of good for cast. You want it really hot, then you want it to cool down slowly, apparently, so it doesn't crack. I'm not gonna do that. I do have a fiberglass blanket I could throw over the top of it, but it's fine. Well, it's a relief for now, knowing that I actually have a rear end that's gonna work for me. I can probably go out and climb some stuff now. I can get back out on the rocks and try it out. We'll do that. We'll try to climb it on them rocks that we couldn't get up before, just to see how much of a difference just the rear end makes. So it's gonna be pretty cool. I would love to just weld the front end of this too, but welding a front end, especially on these type of Jeeps, it's just not gonna work very well for street use at all. Because basically what you're happening then is you're screwing up your steering, and driving on the street would be a nightmare with a welded front. Now if I had selectable hubs, you know, like on the Chevy or something, I can kind of see welding a front end. Then you can at least, you undo the hubs and you can drive on the street and you'll never know the front end is locked. But having a welded front end on these that don't have a selectable hub or anything, it would really bind up the steering, and yeah, it wouldn't be enjoyable at all. Maybe if you had just a straight beater trailer queen, yeah, I could weld the front end of this, but I kind of want to drive this thing a little bit. At least want to get to the spots, but I'll get some sort of little lunchbox locker for the front end of this thing, unfortunately. But that'll be later on. We just got to get through what we're working on right now just to get this thing semi-functional. And I'm pretty happy with the way it's coming out. That rear diff is going to be strong enough, I should say. It's not going to be super strong. Stronger would be actually welding plates over those openings on the carrier. That really makes the carrier, the whole housing itself, a lot stronger, because it sounds like basically what I'm doing now is I've transferred the weak point from being the cross pin kind of side gears and cross pins. Now I've transferred that into the carrier housing, and so now that's going to be the weak link, but we'll worry about that later. Maybe we'll break it and upgrade then. We'll see. Maybe it won't break. I'm not that hard at driving, but I do get carried away sometimes, so we'll see. And just like that, we're back together. I went through and I cleaned up as much slag and little bits of pieces of metal that were splattered all throughout that diff. So we cleaned all that up as best we could. It was super clean, spotless when I was done. This cover does have a magnet, so if there is anything in there, hopefully that'll pick it up. And then I threw the cover on. I threw just a long bolt I had in there with 3 nuts for spacers, just so I can get the clamping force on there for the RTV that's sealing that thing now. We'll get the correct bolt in the morning. And then I also need to go out and get some gear oil. So we'll get all that situated in the morning, and then we can just kind of finish this up. And this little project is done. We're welded, and we got traction in the rear. Yeah. The storm has kind of passed. You can see we got some really pretty clouds now. Truck's gonna have to sit outside for the night while Jeep waits for oil and stuff. Man, that looks nice out there, doesn't it? Those clouds. That's cool. It's the next day. We went and we picked up some gear oil. Went down to AutoZone. I was able to actually dump some used oil I had too, so that was kind of nice to get rid of that, get that out of the garage. But we got some gear oil so we can fill this Jeep back up. It's kind of interesting. I actually took the Chevy down and figured I'd better drive it across town at least. So I took it to do the running around, and man, that truck was running horrible, like coughing, choking. It died a couple times at stoplights, and then I happened to look at the gas gauge, and I was like, it had 1/8 of a tank. I was like, it shouldn't be empty, right? And I was like, well, on one of my stops, because I also picked up the missing bolt we needed for that rear cover, right next to it was a gas station. So I was like, screw it, let's fill this thing up. Maybe it's just got some old fuel in it. And I put 22.5 gallons into that thing. Holy crap. And for some reason, after I did that, it did not want to start. It didn't want to start at all. I'm like, crap, did I just somehow kill a fuel pump by filling it up with fuel? I don't know. But finally it popped off and just ran beautifully. It ran great the rest of the trip. So it was kind of interesting that I had that thing almost out of fuel, I guess. Every time I'd go around a corner or come to a stoplight, it would slosh and, suck air or something. So, whew, saved. I thought I was going to have to work on that thing again. But nope, now we're running again. So, cool. Let's get back to this now. I'll save you the boring montage of putting oil in, but this is what we're using. Cheapest stuff they have there, which is just some cheap 80-90. This one's almost empty. This is an old one I had. So we grabbed one. These are expensive. I don't know. Just oil in general is expensive now. This is what, 5 quarts? $30. I'm like, Jesus, what are we paying now for oil? Is that, it's math. I don't know, I can't think of the math in my head right now. That's a lot per quart, it seems like, for some cheap gear oil. So I don't know, I guess the world is just expensive nowadays. But let's get this thing filled up and finished up. And I'm done with that. This thing looks good on the outside. A nice shiny looking cover. Everything should be sealed up. Shouldn't be leaking now because the bolts are actually tight. We just gotta drop this thing down, and then yeah, we're done with this step. So since that's done, I'm not even gonna pull it out of the garage yet and test it. I want to jump into the front end on this thing. We got a bunch of replacement parts to do: lower control arm, drop brackets, some upgraded steering. And then I should check the fluids on stuff up there too, since the back end was in such bad shape. We're gonna end this video right here, since we got a lot more to do. So I will catch you guys next time when we get on the front end of this thing.